From the Cannondale Contro E-Rigid. I'm here in Brooklyn, New York, just trying to find interesting places to film. It's such a fun place to ride around. It's like really a lot of bikes around here. And you know, I'm actually visiting Propel. It's a shop kind of downtown that sells a bunch of these like urban bikes, and you really start to appreciate the fenders like this one has, and some of them have lights and other fancier features, and they really, you know, you're paying a little bit more. This one's about $3,500, but you're getting some really premium equipment and stuff that'll hold up. And you know, you can really see that here with like the internally geared rear hub. It doesn't have a derailleur that's hanging down that could hit the curbs or could get kicked at the bike rack. None of that kind of stuff. It's got the Bosch center drive, which I'm constantly, you know, praising. I feel like this is one of the more reliable motors. It's also super responsive because it measures your wheel speed, your cadence, and your pedal torque. So it's just really dynamic, and it's the kind of thing that when you're riding in traffic, as I have been more and more, you know, you want to be able to get up and go if you need to. And you know, one day if it's raining, you want to stay dry. I love the design of this bike. Like it's kind of like artistic. It's got a Lefty fork, which is a big Cannondale thing, and I mean, I don't think it's like necessary. You could just have a normal fork, but it's really cool looking. And same thing with the fenders. They're oversized, they're aluminum, really lightweight, but they got the support struts and stuff, and actually goes pretty low so that you're not going to get quite as much like shin and shoe splash going on. Same thing with the rear. They even have a proprietary rack that you can get. So coming back to utility, it kind of bolts on the inside of the seat stay here. So that's kind of neat. I think it's like $120 or something like that. So you know, you pay a little bit more for some of this. I noticed it did not have a bottle cage. I guess it just wouldn't fit. And part of that's because, you know, you've got this sloping top tube, and these are actually 24-inch wheels. So, you know, coming back to what this bike does differently, it's really stable. Like it's really low to the ground, and I think the wheels are a little bit stronger. There's no suspension, and Cannondale does offer like a Lefty suspension fork. In this case, it's just rigid, and I think they did that to save money, so you get the cool look, but it's not quite as expensive, maybe not quite as heavy either. So, you know, the bike, I was weighing it earlier, it's about 50 pounds, and that's kind of standard for like a lot of these Bosch powered bikes. But most of that weight from the motor, from the battery right there, low, centered. It's like 5.4 pounds. Pretty lightweight battery pack, could be charged on or off the bike. It's great that you can remove that along with the display, because, you know, if you are in a public place, leaving your bike outside, not wanting to carry it up to your flat, you can take all the sensitive bits off and just leave the frame, which I really appreciate. And you can even ride this just like a regular bike. You don't need to have it electrified. They have a new battery pack too that's 500 watt hours that you can buy to replace this in the future, so you could go a little bit further. But the 400 watt hour does get you, you know, 30 to 60 miles range per charge, depending on the level of assist, depending on the environment that you're in, how hard you're working versus, you know, the highest level of assist climbing hills in the wind. Of course, you're going to wear it down a little bit faster. But I think it's set up really well. I like that. A lot of these different you know, the different companies get to kind of specify their frames and some of the other components, and one thing they get to do is pick the chainring here, and I think this one's an 18 tooth. That sounds small, but it's actually because this spins at like 2.5 times your pedal rotation. So they do that in order to let the motor operate at a higher RPM and to kind of start and stop quicker. And so they have to have some gearing in there to do that. The 8-speed hub in the rear, you know, that's a decent range of gears, and it does let you shift at standstill, but you kind of have to ease off a little bit for it to actually fall into place and like, you know, to actually catch. A couple times I've been pedaling hard, shifting while I was pedaling, and nothing happened until I kind of eased off, and then, you know, I felt it fall into place. Anyway, what I wanted to call your attention to is that there's this plastic cover, and it's just plastic. You know, some of the mountain bikes with the Bosch system have little metal ones and stuff, but this one's a little bit more curved. All the bike riding I've been doing lately, you know, my pants have gotten snagged a couple times and ripped, and it's just nice to have something like that to keep your pants from getting greasy or getting snagged. So, you know, I feel like they did that all right, and the plastic is enough to, you know, it helps you a little bit. Pedals are okay. They're kind of like the resin with the rubber contact patch. Over time, if you're getting wet and stuff, and if you have bigger feet, you know, this is one area where I might upgrade and get some of the like Welgos on Amazon. They're not too expensive, and they have the metal nubs, and so it just feels like you're a little bit more more traction. The thing is, then they're bigger, and when you turn, especially with smaller wheels that bring the bike closer to the ground, these are still 170 millimeter cranks. And so when you turn, if you angle, they can hit the concrete a little bit easier, and the bigger pedals do that a little bit more. So it's kind of a trade-off. Again, the standover height on this is a little bit lower because of the wheels and that top tube angle, you know, and the wheels are tougher, but there's little trade-offs. This is kind of stuff that you get to familiarize yourself with over time when you buy a bike like this and you ride it a lot. I love that they've got this cool Trelloc 2.0, kind of a folding lock built right onto the bike, and it's keyed the same as your battery. So you only need one key, and it's just, look how nicely that fits in there. It looks really beautiful. We've got Shimano Dior hydraulic disc brakes, 160 in the rear, 180 up front millimeters. So lots of great stopping power. You don't really have to overexert yourself with these levers. And if you are someone, I mean, I think this would be a cool bike for like him or her. If you are someone with smaller hands, you can actually dial in these levers. The reach can be adjusted so they aren't quite as far away. Got the nice locking grips, Cannondale branded, little bell for kind of safety, let people know you're coming. And check it out. We got the oversized head tube with an adjustable angle stem again, and it fits really nicely with the display panel. It just, you know, barely fits in there. That's something you can dial in. So again, this could be even a shared bike, and you can just kind of dial it back and bring those handlebars closer for the shorter rider, and then push it forward for the taller rider. It does come in 2 different sizes. I think it's like 18 and a 20-inch frame, which is nice. Nice to be able to just get that fit right if you are commuting a lot. And in my opinion, I mean, the bike has just felt really tough, like really bulletproof riding along. Got the Schwalbe Crazy Bob tires. These are 24 by 2.35. They don't have any extra special puncture protection or anything, but Schwalbe makes good tires kind of as is. And these ones have a little bit of reflective paint on them, just the labeling. No reflective stripe, but they do give you that bigger, kind of more cushiony, almost like BMX tread, which I appreciate. It's just kind of fun. They match the bike, kind of like, it's like a Bulldog kind of bike. It's a little thicker, kind of fun looking. And speaking of looking, you've got these little accent points, the green. You can change that out. So I think they have blue and they have gray. So if this was like a his and hers situation, or a his and his, or hers and hers, you could kind of like trick out your bike a little bit. And they've even got this fun little extra, I think it's like a light hanger or something, so you could add a light. Again, it doesn't come with them, and if you did have light, you'd need to, you know, put it here on the post, and you wouldn't have to get their proprietary rack. You could just use kind of the clamp on beam racks is what they call them, but they get bumped side to side, so I'd actually look into that rack if you're commuting. But for everyone else who just wants a bike to get around, you wear a backpack, something that looks cool, this is a pretty cool fit. The seat post diameter is a little bit different. So again, no suspension on this. I'm often talking about how my back and neck get a little beat up over time riding a lot. Top speed on this is 20 miles per hour, so you're not going like ridiculous fast. You could do a seat post suspension, but you might need a shim because it's kind of like a different diameter. And I got that back at the website in the specs. It was kind of something new to me. I think it's kind of proprietary Cannondale stuff. I like the seat. You know, it's fabric, which I think is another Cannondale like sub brand, and it feels soft and it just looks cool. Like the whole thing is really, it's kind of like artistic to me. So yeah. Oh, and I wanted to call out that they've got these stainless eyelets, and so the rims are double wall, and it's designed not to split. So again, just that toughness, like a little bit more rugged. I think if anything was going to break on this, you know, it might be the fenders or whatever, but I mean, you can kind of bash them, and they're so thin and they're so close to the tire already that they feel a little bit tougher, and they look cool. Like, so that's, for me, that's the big thing about this bike. Love that it comes with that kickstand and that you can kind of pedal backwards if you need to without colliding. It's something that I think about. And then this is what the charger looks like here. It's a 4 amp charger, so it's faster. A lot of electric bikes only have 2 amp chargers. It's pretty light. It's 1.7 pounds. It's compact enough that you can just throw it in your backpack. It's sort of what I do when I'm going for a ride. And I think that's about it. I'm actually here with Chris. I mentioned Propel Bikes earlier. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, guys.
You know, this has been kind of an interesting bike to me, because on the one hand, at first I was like, wow, does it have suspension? Like, what's the deal? And after looking at it, it's like, okay, well, it's just kind of a more affordable city Bosch bike.
Right, absolutely.
But it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks really great. You know, you'd be surprised. You do actually get a good amount of comfort from these tires, but, and you know, as you mentioned before, you can definitely put a suspension seat post
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people really like just kind of this stiff frame that's, you know, got some wider tires so you can handle a lot of different things. And it's just really nimble with the smaller wheel size and everything like that. It's a lot of fun.
There is that feeling of inertia sometimes when you don't have, where you're just, it's like the BMX. This is almost like a big kid BMX bike, you know, with the tires and everything like that.
Sure.
So I can appreciate it. When, you know, with the hydraulic brakes and the lock and everything, it's neat. It's like in a world with like lots of Bosch bikes that kind of look the same and stuff. This one stands out to me. I appreciate that. You know, do you have any other feedback about Cannondale as a brand or anything?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, this Lefty fork was something that they were, you know, had originally introduced, and as you mentioned, they do have that Lefty suspension fork, which is quite popular, and that's also an option. You could potentially fit the Lefty suspension fork if you wanted.
Okay.
It's a little pricey, but it could be a really nice upgrade.
And it actually came with this little light thing?
Right. So, you know, as you may know, that the Bosch system, you're able to retrofit lights to run off the Bosch battery, and that's pretty much possible with almost any Bosch powered bike. Now, this actually has this light mount which works well specifically with supernova lights, but it will work with other lights as well.
Okay. Is that something you guys do?
Yeah, we've set up the supernova light up here, and actually we've done tail lights down by the rear here.
Supernova
just kinda
has the 3 LED
yeah,
one.
exactly. So that's kind of a nice touch to do that.
Okay. Well, I want to hit the display overview. I'm kind of being redundant here. Yeah, you can take the battery off. You can take the display off. I'm going to try to show that real quick. There you go. Looks like that. It's pretty cool. Has a little USB charging port on the side, which is cool too. So if you're using your phone for GPS or music or something, you can charge it. I think it's like 6 amps, a little micro USB. This doesn't swivel as much as it normally would just because it's kind of inset in that adjustable angle stem. So if you really angled this up, the display would be kind of facing 90 degrees, and if you really angle it down, it'd be flat. That's a little bit of a complaint slash, I mean, I don't know. There are a lot of displays out there that aren't removable, that don't angle at all. So I'm okay with it, but it's one of the compromises with this, you know, oversized kind of unique headset or stem. We turn the bike on by pressing that power button. It's just one step. We got 5 little ticks in the battery indicator, 20% increments. This is one area where I feel like Bosch, you know, it'd be nice if it had 10 dots or a percentage or something, but you know, it's enough. And part of the reason I think they get away with fewer ticks is because they've got this range thing. So I'll press the I button in either place here, and it's going to take me through the different readouts, and we get to range. Well, as soon as you arrow up and you start going through those 4 levels of assist, it estimates how far you can go. So it says 69 miles on Eco. That's awesome. You know, if you watch a lot of the reviews I do, I go through the same sequence, and a lot of times I'm like 50 miles, 60 miles, 20 miles. Like, it all depends on how full the battery is, but this is one of the longest distance I've ever seen estimated. And I think it's because these tires are really full. It's a really efficient bike. You're not losing any efficiency to bob from suspension. And it's fairly, you know, 50 pounds is kind of like right there with the Bosch bikes. The point being, it's very, very capable. And it's actually taking into consideration your recent riding habits. And I'm only 135 pounds. We've been riding on flat city streets, and so it's saying, hey, you're doing really well. You're going to get a lot of range on Eco mode, which is still, you know, it's decent. It's like 50% assistance, and then you arrow up to Tour, and I don't know if it jumps up to 100% or something, and then it's like Sport and Turbo. Again, all that's back in the ride-up. Turbo is where I test the bikes. It's fun to kind of show you the chain and give you a feel for like what it sounds like, because this motor does produce a bit of a whine, especially at higher RPM, but I love that it gives you a range of RPM pedaling options. Some of the other bikes with the Yamaha system in particular, it's like you have to pedal like slower, like, and it's like if you shift down to spin, you lose the motor support. So Bosch, I feel like you get a wider range of motor support. It's super responsive. It's measuring the wheel speed, the cadence, and the torque 1,000 times per second. So it's awesome the way that's set up. Some of the other readouts on this are odometer, trip distance, clock, max speed, average speed, trip time. So lots of information here. You can change it so it's in like metric versus imperial. Just go in there. And again, you might have heard the clicking. It's kind of tactile, so you really don't have to look down. If you're in the city, it's like you want an aggressive bike that's handling well, but you want your head up, or at least I do, because I want to spot traffic and talk to my friends and stuff. So they've done a good job with this, and I like the color too. I mean, I mentioned the little plastic accents, but black never really goes out of style, and it looks cool, kind of mean, aggressive. Also, I think back here you can see this extra little washer and stuff. That's so you can slide this and create tension. I was talking about how it's less vulnerable. And the chain's not going to bounce around as much either. And so they don't have a slap guard here, and that's because there's nowhere for the chain to go. There's only one sprocket in the rear versus a whole cassette. So maybe less maintenance over time. Chris, can you comment on that? Like how these hold up versus derailleurs and stuff?
Yeah, internally geared hub is nice because you don't have the derailleur hanging down, or sometimes it can be prone to like hit or something like that, especially if you're locking the bike up in the city. Somebody might kick it, or who knows what really could happen. Somebody locks up a bike next to it. So it's not really prone to that like issue with something getting thrown out of alignment or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And really, if there's ever an adjustment that needs to be made, it's very simple. Actually, if you see right here, you see these lines kind of lined up.
Yeah.
That's basically, right now it's kind of in perfect adjustment. That's in fourth gear. It should show these two lines should be lined up. If it's kind of like that, then basically you need to adjust the barrel adjuster to kind of get it back into to line. So that's something that's pretty cool. Really, as far as maintenance, it's pretty much just once a year you have to give this thing a oil bath. It's a recommendation from Shimano. It's a pretty straightforward procedure, and most competent shops are capable of it.
Is it okay to shift at standstill like we were doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's one of the real nice things. You know, you get to a light, you forget to downshift or whatever the case may be, you can always shift and prepare for whatever, you know, you might encounter.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a learning curve with the internally geared hub. You know, just to kind of, you have to let off the pedaling just a little bit as you're shifting.
Yeah.
And that's something that people also notice about the Bosch system. It's something that, you know, it actually has the shift sensing.
That's right.
Which doesn't work as well with the internally geared hubs, but actually with the most recent update, the shift sensing works much better. They've kind of found a way to dial that in and make it a lot better with the internally geared hubs.
It's a cool thing about Bosch that they have released several software updates. You go back to the shop and can kind of get yours tuned up. Right. Another complaint about these, you know, we're talking about how tough they are, but they're heavier. That weighs a little bit more than...
Sure, absolutely. Definitely a little bit of weight.
So, you know, coming back to a 50-pound bike, it's like, yeah, you know, it's fine. Maybe it's time to hop on this thing, right? Like, get some action. We hold the...
Yeah, you got it.
I'm going to get my stuff put away here. That kickstand. Take it all the way out to turbo so you can hear this thing. Kind of funky just having one side of your fork. And you can see that the display is kind of angled down like I was talking about before, but you know, it's all adjustable, and this hasn't gotten completely set up for me. It's just sort of something we grabbed off the floor. I'm gonna do some shifting in a minute here. Okay, Chris is gonna hop on. We'll get some third person perspective. I think we're all clear, dude. Looking good. Yeah, it is a little bit more compact.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you feel like, you know, tight steering, you can really handle it.
It's more nimble. That's the thing about the city. You got to stop all the time at stoplights. It's really nice to have that assist. Just picks right back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready?
Right.
You know, compared to a bike with the step through like this, you know, yeah, you have to lift your leg a little higher, but there's definitely a stiffness there. Just that feeling of like things are tight on that bike. I think that's about it. I really appreciate you hanging out with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing the little adventures up and down the street. For the full write-up on this, all the specs I could gather, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, as always, ride safe.